America's first competition talk show.
You're in the hub.
In a city of millions, two rivals.
This is the kid. Calls me 59 days in a row, wants to be a player.
Will face off.
Ought to be a picture of you in the dictionary on our persistence, kid.
Thank you. When the world is mine, your death shall be quick and painless.
In the battle for world domination.
Will you take it? Right in the air?
You know, if you're gonna shout, we can just talk later. Oh, okay, all right. You know what? Call me back when you calm down.
Power.
I gave you your manhood. I gave you everything. I don't sweat. You bring it on, bitch. Now how you gonna act? Phew, bringing that trash in here. This is my house.
Okay, so I get a phone call from my mother last week who told me a story of the neighbor's kid, the daughter of a very liberal family that lives in the neighborhood, who came up just a few weeks back and said that she wanted to run for president one day. Mom and Dad asked her, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she said, "I want to be president one day." And he said, "Oh, that's so sweet. Well, what would you do if you were president?" And she said, "Well, Mom, I think I'd give houses and food to all the homeless people." And Mom looked at her and thought, "Yeah, that's really great, honey. You're going to grow up to do great things in life in our little liberal household." And my mother just had to bring up the obvious, which was, well, you can do that right now, honey. You could come over and mow my lawn and trim my hedges, and I'll give you $50, and you can go give it to the homeless person. The girl thought about it a minute and said, "Well, I mean, why couldn't he just come over and mow your lawn?" Well, that brings up a good point. That brings up a point that I think all little girls should think about early in life, and quite frankly, a lot of grown-ups should probably get around to sooner than later. Because right now, in US of A, more and more of us are suggesting that America desperately needs a financial intervention. And it really is, despite everything that's been talked about on the campaign trails right now, about where did the money come from and where did the money go and who's got the money. And, the real big theme here is that the folks in power are bankrupting us. And it's been that way for a long time. It's just that they have steered it to a frenzied pace in the last couple of years under the Obama administration. And honestly, this is the thing that rightfully a lot of folks are concerned about today, because we're looking at a $13.6 trillion net debt now, $1.3 trillion this year, and every time we think, how do we get out of this? We raise our debt ceiling up again. Which now stands at something like $14 trillion. So this is the big issue. And writing just last week in, I believe it was the New York Times of all things, they come out with a column and they actually point out a couple of things that we really need to do in America. And the first thing is realize that there is no free lunch. I mean, unless you're a big bank packaging a collateralized debt obligation in your lunchbox and you're the biggest bully on the playground, there is no free lunch. And less and less of that is becoming an option for them as well. How do you communicate that? Not really to the American people. We get it, Jared. How do you communicate this in Washington, D.C. now? That's the thing.
Well, yeah, I think that we're starting to do that. It's starting to be heard, and where it's not being heard, people are getting kicked out. So, I think the message is starting to be received. It's whether or not they want to hear it and whether or not they want to deal with it and face reality. But the American people are starting to show their willingness, and because it's not just Obama. I mean, this goes back 2 Bushes to where this has come down from and begun, and people have been. Okay, well, we got George Bush after Reagan, and you're like, okay, well, we got Clinton. Well, we sent the Republicans in. Okay, all saved. Not so much. Now we got George W. Bush. Okay, now no, not so much. And And people were pretty much fed up with it. And at the end of the Bush administration, the beginning of the Obama administration, it's done. And you can see it in the elections now, where the people that are getting thrown out of office. You talk about the Tea Party movement, but the Tea Party movement is about throwing the bums out that have been in power. It's all about turning over new blood more than it is about electing Republicans or Democrats.
Well, and the thing about it is that, and another thing they point out of the article is that financial engineering does not work. Keynes has had 2 or 3 tries at it. He's failed every time, and we're all starting to get real romantic about a little country called Austria and what Hayek came up with there. Now, but here's the thing. It's not like alchemy. You can't just wave a magic wand and clean up your balance sheets by splitting things up with things like consolidated debt obligations, by selling security derivatives, by packaging your debt 1,000 different ways from sunset, and all of a sudden keep a balance sheet, a spreadsheet, balanced. It's amazing to me right now. We've already done this once this year. We've already had the Fed head Ben Bernanke steam up, and he's saying, okay, what we've got to do, what the Fed's got to do, is start printing again, and quantitatively ease, as they like to call it, the process here. And then what we'll do is buy the Treasury bonds, buy the Treasury debt with the money we created out of thin air. Well, now they learned their lesson supposedly from earlier in the year, and the lesson to be learned was it didn't work because we stopped too early. Yeah. We got to do it again.
Right.
Yeah, that's the lesson.
Robin, and how do you save yourself from the madness here?
You've got to find somebody who can actually understand the word no. Mm-hmm. And if they have to have their mommy come and slap their hand to make them understand that you can't just print it, it's not going to just magically become, the fix-all to everything. There's just it's time to turn the sieve off. And if they can't understand that whenever you turn it off, that doesn't mean you can just go back over and turn it back on whenever you want. But there's this mindset of we can fix it, just let us. We're in charge. We can do this, and you can't just keep telling yourself something enough and it become true.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that happened after World War II. We didn't learn that Marxism and socialism failed. We just learned that we needed a better Marxist. Yeah. You need a better widget. You don't need to do a different type of thing. You just need to do what you're doing better.
So much of what the Fed does. This is there's a story out. There's a book out, and a movie I think is even under the same title called Rogue Trader. That's about a guy in, I believe he's in India, but it's the British market, I think. And he goes and he gets into a bad position, and he's losing a ton of money. And so instead of trying to get out of the position and salvage what he can, what he tries to do is actually continue to buy this bad debt so that he will force the market up so he can then sell and break even. And what he ends up doing is bankrupting one of the largest banks in England,
banking on his losses.
Trying to do this, and that's what we're trying to do with the Fed. Well, we're gonna print money over here, and then we're gonna take that money and we're gonna buy the debt that we issued over here, and think that that'll work. It's because it's just money. We just create it. It has no real value behind it.
And that's the thing. And the hubris that we're seeing right now in the campaign trail from guys like Bonnie Frank, who started this whole thing with Senator Chris Dodd with the mortgage thing. A lot of folks don't know. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae do not sell mortgages. They buy mortgages from these private banks, and then they sell them back as mortgage-backed securities, which is a fancy way of saying, inflating the value of something beyond what it actually is. In a lot of cases, that's what happened there. But ultimately, you've got Bonnie Frank and Chris Dodd. I was saying that responsible for so much of this, and now you've got him out there on the trail again saying, just like before. It wasn't that it failed. It's that we didn't have the right amount of time, and we'll do better next time. Just put us back in. It's absolute lunacy, and it's got to stop.
But he's told himself that enough times that he's going to believe it.
He'll believe it.
Well, it buys votes. It buys votes. And the beauty of all this to me is that the same people that want to talk about affordable housing and how we need affordable housing, you need affordable housing. Barney Frank, Chris Dodd, that's one of their big things. At the same time, they then want to prop up home prices with various gizmos, and they want to, get loans through Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, and do everything they can to keep your home value up, and then at the same time produce affordable housing. Well, those two things are diametrically opposed to each other. You can't raise prices of houses and get affordable housing at the same time. And affordable housing is a big scam anyways because it's arbitrary. What exactly is affordable housing? You can't really define that.
Whatever you can afford.
Yeah, whatever your voter base would like to buy a house for.
Yeah,
that's what affordable
does my voter
housing
base
is.
want? That's affordable housing. We'll see you tomorrow on The Hub.